murdered 1 million people in Auschwitz using poison gas. Why is there no trace of that gas in the buildings of Auschwitz today? And none of us historians thought of demanding that there should be tests carried out on the fabric of the gas chambers at Auschwitz. The buildings survived partly. They're in ruins, some of them, others are more or less intact. And eventually, in 1988, as part of this Canadian trial that I mentioned, the case against Ernst Zundel, the defense lawyers decided to send an expert in gas chambers over to Auschwitz. So this expert in gas chambers, a man called Fred Leuchter, was sent over to Auschwitz to test the gas chambers of the Nazi concentration camp. Would these gas chambers work? Is there any trace of their having been used as gas chambers? Is there any residue of cyanide gas in the walls? All the obvious questions. And he came back and he wrote an affidavit for the court, which we eventually published as the Leuchter report. The forensic tests carried out on the 48 samples that he brought back to the United States, bits of brickwork that he took out of the walls and submitted to the forensic laboratories in Cornell University that had tests carried out. And the result was that in 47 of the 48 samples, there wasn't the slightest significant trace of cyanide compound. In the 48th sample, there were colossal traces of cyanide. What is the explanation of that result? Well, the answer is in that sample, he had taken out of a little gas chamber that was used for disinfesting clothing, killing the lice and the vermin in the prisoners' clothing. The clothing was stuffed into this little gas chamber, which looked like a gas chamber. He got a steel door with racks rather like a dry cleaners for wheeling the clothing in and out, and he took that sample out of that brickwork. It's significant because all our opponents have said you don't expect to find cyanide in the brickwork after 50 years. How absurd, how ludicrous. After 50 years of wind and rain, you're not going to find cyanide compounds, residue of a gas in the brickwork. And the answer is you do. And the proof of that answer is, in fact, the walls of that little gas chamber were so soaked in cyanide compounds that they'd turned blue. Got photographs of it here, what those blue walls look like. You can see here color photographs of the little gas chamber in Auschwitz showing the blue stain on the walls where the cyanide has seeped through the brickwork. A young 28-year-old German chemist, a research chemist working at the Max Planck Institute in Germany. The Max Planck Institute is one of the most prestigious bodies with the kind of reputation of the National Institutes of Health here in Bethesda, Maryland. He decided to write his dissertation on that one subject, the permanence of cyanide compounds in brickwork. And having written his dissertation, he then allowed it to be circulated in printed form to 2,000 professors of chemistry at universities who confirmed that what he had written was true. Too late, the traditional enemy spotted what he did, and they had him dismissed from his position at the Max Planck Institute. The letters have now been published where they put pressure on the Max Planck Institute for him to be dismissed, for allowing his scientific report, his dissertation, to be published. Under the German laws for the suppression of free speech, he had infringed against those laws and he's now been sent to prison for 14